Onward. There we go.
Okay, so what do you remember?
I remember the carpet that lasted forever, except it was made of wool. And Gary one time do you remember when you were...
I tried juggling eggs. I can't imagine why I tried juggling eggs, because I couldn't
On
juggle.
carpet.
Well, I was doing
Oh,
it, yeah, and I dropped them, and I had to clean them up. And then,
Before Mom got home.
before we got home.
I don't remember this at all.
you never heard about it.
Never heard about it before.
And
You knew about
and
the Crisco.
I mopped it up, and of course then the thing was wet, and so then I brought out a hairdryer to try drying it. And of course I hadn't gotten all of the
Egg
out, so then it started to cook. Then I had to rub that out, and I had to wash it off, but I must have done a good job because
Yeah, you never know about it.
I never knew about it.
40
It was
years later.
It was 100% wool,
That's the best.
and it was a
carpet ever.
tweed, and it lasted and it lasted and it lasted.
And I also remember my brother always being so bright that he is we had the light fixture, and Gary would take a mirror and show us how to shine the light reflection onto the mirror, and then you would take the mirror reflection and shine it onto the wall. Do you remember that?
Yes, the magnifying mirror, and then
Yes.
you could actually see the picture of the light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where was that
else
when you
would
were doing
think of
all
these
this?
things?
We
But
would
my
do
brother
that. We
would.
would do that on the stairs
Stairs.
coming downstairs
Yes.
from upstairs.
Yes.
Because the light was right in the right spot for that, and there was the wall at the right angle, and everything just
Right.
worked out beautifully. Yeah, I remember doing
Because
that.
Gary could do that.
Well, you also did wax the floor with Crisco.
That was
No,
before
that
my time.
That was the old house.
that was on the other
That was late. night.
other tape before he was 3 years old. He put Crisco all over the place. Let's see.
That's why we had to move, I think.
And in the basement we had containers that Daddy had made pickles or wine. They were
Yeah,
No.
there were the
Big
crocks
big crops
for the pickles,
Yeah.
and then we also had the bottles that he used for making the wine.
No, but you made the
And-
wine into the crock first, because when I sold the house, we still had the handle from a broom or a mop or something with some of the material on it.
Yeah,
He used-
cheesecloth. He would hang
Put the grapes in there, to drip down.
in the shower in the basement. That
Right.
would have been Rosie's shower. We would hook cheesecloth to the four corners to make the thing. We'd put the grapes in there, and we'd squeeze it, and the juice would come down. We'd let it drip, drip, drip until it dripped out.
I don't
Yeah.
remember any of the squeezing. I don't remember the dripping. I just remember the crocks.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we would make it. I don't remember if we bought grapes, but we had the grape vines in the back.
Yeah, we
We
had
had green and purple.
That's right.
Yeah.
The purples were Concord grapes. They had very thick skins.
Yeah.
That's the ones we use for the wine.
I use those for the wine.
Yes.
That was so cool.
And
And we had the metal trash cans out back that were in a big concrete
in a concrete area to keep them from.
do you
rolling away.
remember whenever your father would be driving and see a land turtle, he'd stop and get the turtle and bring it home?
Right. Yep.
And then
We would
outside-
put it in the pen on the side
outside
of the house.
outside of the window from the basement, there was a little concrete area, and we put up some fencing, and we put the turtle in there, and how or why, because the concrete was there, turtles always got away, but we just would go and get another one.
That's right.
And we would feed them lettuce and
And ground meat, yes.
and whatever, and they'd stay for a little while, and then they'd get tired and they'd just take off.
And, Gary still does some cooking. He always did like to cook. And he made a meal of something one time, and none of the kids would eat it,
Scrambled eggs.
so he gave it outside to the dog, and
Oh,
the dog
God,
wouldn't
I have
eat it
not-
either.
I have not heard that story in such a long time.
Even the dog wouldn't eat it.
That's okay. I still make eggs like that sometimes.
Yeah, that was one of my fiascos. But
Oh, but Gary also would take cream de menthe and freeze it and
That was when he
scrape
went to
it up
Poly, though.
when he was going to high school.
I made creme de menthe ice.
And he cooked a duck with the
Duck à l'orange.
the orange inside the duck and all. I mean, he was good. But going way back, Sydney used to, as I was told, when he was a child, would stand up on a chair and help his mother. He'd bake cakes and things.
Yeah, with a little spoon. Bubie Rose
Yes.
used to tell me with.
A little spoon, yes.
She loved that about him.
And they didn't have very far to go to school. they could walk to school. And I guess at that time some mother must have watched them because they were not allowed to cross the street without an adult.
Nobody was watching me because I remember I fell one time and the taxi driver wanted to take me home. He stopped the car, he saw me bleeding and wanted to take me home. And I told him that I couldn't get in the car because my mom had always told me not to get in a car with strangers. So I went to walk the rest of the way to the school. That's how I did.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
I don't even remember when you ran away from home.
And I also know that my knees, I just can't believe my knees aren't scarred because they were always
You were a
scabbed.
cowboy?
Always scabbed. I don't know why. I just thought that was normal growing up.
Well, they had the safeties at every corner, so there was somebody to help you across the street.
Yeah.
No,
And when
they didn't have a safety down at was it Layton Avenue? Labyrinth.
Labyrinth, yes. Yeah.
Maybe
Oh, wait.
maybe up at Gist, but not at Williamson.
Sure they did.
They did that far down?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, talking about
Well, when I was in 6th grade, I was in charge of the safeties.
Yes,
I
you were.
was the guy in charge, and I had to make the rounds. I know where they all were.
and when Mindy was a safety, and I was supposed to be washing her belt or whatever,
Run across me.
I soaked it in bleach and it disintegrated.
I was so embarrassed. So I only got an orange thing to wear around my arm to say I was a safety. So mad. I wanted that big weight.
And one time when Mindy was in elementary school, she didn't feel well. And they never bothered to call the parents right away. They'd go down to the principal's office and they'd put them in the nurse's room. We didn't have a nurse there every day, all day. And school let out. And where's Mindy? Mindy didn't come home. So I went up to the school to find out where Mindy was. She was still asleep in the nurse's room. Nobody remembered she was there.
Oh dear.
Not only did they forget me there, I was also bad in 1st or 2nd grade, and I had afternoon detention. But it was like the last day of school, and everybody left, and I was still sitting there waiting with my big dictionary. It was like a picture dictionary until the janitor came in and told me that I could leave the building.
Oh goodness.
Don't remember that one.
What happened to your sister and brother? They didn't wait for you or anything?
Well, they were probably out of school, out of the elementary school.
No,
by
they
then.
weren't. Not
Oh.
if I was in 1st or 2nd grade, but they
Oh.
just left me. I was there, and the janitor let me out. They forgot.
That's gotta be a unique thing, detention on the last day of school.
I know. How bad could I have been? What did I do? I remember when Amy, years later, and Amy in middle school, she got in trouble, and the teacher had to give her detention, and he was like, he kept shaking his head when he says, well, I had to because she did something wrong, but she was really such a good kid. It was really hard. And what had she done? She'd passed notes in school and she'd gotten detention for it. And and he was like, well, I had to do something. But he almost felt guilty because it was like, wasn't bad enough to do anything, but you sort of had to.
Right.
Me, I don't know what I did.
Gary, you were the best of the punished group, right?
Yeah, that was in nursery school.
Yes.
Pre-kindergarten.
Miss
Betty's
Betty's
school. Miss Betty and Mr. Bill.
Yes. You and Eddie Dane would get off, and you were the best of the punished group. You were together.
We were the one. We would talk when we were supposed to be sleeping, but as soon as they said, "Well, now you can't go out and play," we'd be very quiet until they'd let us go. So we were always the first out of the people that were being held back.
But my father used to plant some flowers for the Danes around the side of their house, and then one day you see Eddie and Gary digging up, and they were going to have a dirty dirt store. They were digging up the bulbs
Oops.
Pop-Pop had planted.
And we'd collect the lint out of the dryer vents, and for some reason they were called spiced meat. I have no idea why.
I don't remember that one.
That was just me and Eddie, so I have no idea
So
why.
dirty dirt and spiced meat.
Yes.
And
Well, we paid for it with the money from the
Probably,
money tree.
yeah, probably.
It all made sense.
Right.
And how about when it snowed and you went sled riding on that big hill behind our house?
Yes.
It was,
Maybe 3 feet tall.
but it was quite an adventure. And of course, by the time, like any other kid, by the time you get all the clothes on them to go outside, they had to come and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Somehow it was easier when we were all kids having everything done for us than when I became a parent and had to do it for the kids. And then, once I was a parent, I was always out there with them because for some reason I was never allowed to stay in the house if they were out there in the cold. Do you guys do that too?
Well, don't you remember how you couldn't play with the kids across the street unless a grown-up was out? You weren't allowed to cross the street.
That's true.
Well, actually, with Carol, it's more a matter of the kids going, "Can we go inside now?" Carol's, "No, we're making the snowman. We're making this, that, and the other. We're cold. No, we're having fun out here." Like, all right, you stay out here. We're going inside where it's warm. But I think, man, I'd feed them cocoa.
The same thing. I'm the one who wants to make the cookie.
And then,
But in my house, when my kids were little, our hill was taller,
Yes.
and they would sled down, but they could never pull the sled up. So I was always the one there that had to go back down, pull the sled back up so they could go whoosh, and then I had to go back down to go get the sled to bring it up for the next kid.
So you had all the work and none of the pleasure.
Yeah.
I sort of remember doing that for you in that little hill.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
When you were too little to pull it back up.
Okay,
I
yeah.
sort of remember bringing it up.
now, their father was a great swimmer. He was on the swim team when he went to City College, which was a high school, even though it was called that. And I was always terrified of the water. So as soon as they were old enough or big enough, I sent them to the JCC to get swim lessons. And her name was Miss, she died not too long ago. Remember I told you I saw it in
Yeah,
there?
it'll come to me in a minute. I know exactly who you're talking about.
When I read the obituary, I knew who she was. But anyway. And I think you kids used to get on the bus and go down there.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
You know.
It was a straight run. We'd
Yeah.
wait by the money tree. We'd get on the bus. We'd go down to the JCC.
Yeah, but
And
come home.
But you used to have to ring the bell to get off.
That's
and one
right.
time I missed it, and I begged the bus driver to let me off before we got across Northern Parkway because there was no way I was crossing Northern
You're right.
Parkway, and he did.
And it wasn't that far really, because often after school, the 2 years I went to Pimlico, I would walk home from there.
You walked out from Pimlico?
Yeah.
You know, we walked a lot more when we were kids.
I mean,
Of course you did.
I'd walk just because I didn't feel like getting on the bus and whatever. I don't
I know.
remember what
Was
it
her
was.
name Fowler?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
you're right, Fowler.
Fowler.
We walked a lot more
What
when we
was
were
it?
kids.
Was
Kids
the
don't
swimming
walk like they
teacher?
used to.
I know. Kids
And-
definitely
and
don't.
she-
Adults walk more.
And she pushed me into the pool
Yeah,
because I
so
wouldn't
did I,
jump in. I wouldn't jump in, so eventually she just pushed me in.
So if you took the bus down there, how did you get back home? You would have had to cross the street to get a bus to
Yes,
come
but
back
there was a
home.
light in front of the JCC. There was a
Oh,
light
you were
little light.
allowed to cross with a light?
Or maybe
Yeah.
you guys would pick us up. They just didn't take us down or something. I don't
Oh.
remember.
I know when you went to Hebrew school, it was between Mrs. Oring and me, or your father. Your father would take you three and Ira before he went to the houses to do the collection
Oh, on
of
Sundays.
our rentals. And when she would come out, she often had a coat over her nightgown to take you.
That I don't remember.
Yeah.
How we doing there?
That's